Hey everyone, David here. I'm talking about some squad leader. Today, specifically, squad leader scenario 1, the Guards Counterattack. This is by request. It's going to be a walkthrough, probably just the first turn. So what we're going to cover are setting up all these guys, knowing which rules are relevant, using information counters, and also the board. All right, let's get started. As we get started, this is probably the most important part of any scenario card. Remembering that squad leader was set up to be programmed instruction, here we see which rules are being introduced and also the victory conditions. Read these carefully, no matter what scenario you're playing. The reason being, many people have lost games, squad leader, ASL, other levels, because they simply fail to fully understand the victory conditions. For flavor, of course, we have the background of the actual attack, which board we're going to use, and of course, the soldiers that are going to be deployed. Key to note here for the special rules, this applies to any scenario. Units may deploy anywhere within the designated building, not just in the hex used to identify the building. This is key to remember. So let's have a look at the battlefield. Looking at the familiar terrain, we see that this is the battlefield from row A to P inclusive. So those buildings over on the far right, they can be part of this battle. Key to note. Also looking at the terrain, we see various terrain features and types. Go through the rules and understand exactly what each one means. For example, these buildings with 3 hexes or more, are multi-level buildings, also designated by the hexes with the squares in them. Also note, we have stone and wood buildings, these two being wood. We have open ground. This one, notice that shadow there is there for aesthetics only. It doesn't count in play. Also, we have woods, each one. Basically, you're more likely to die in the open than you are in cover. And each cover has a various, what we call, dice roll modifier. But of course, having read rules sections 1 to 21, you know about this. So let's get further into the rules. Going through the rules, you'll note that I have a very old, seasoned copy that's been around once or twice. Also, it is the 4th edition, which means it is the latest edition that was published by Avalon Hill. The rules cover things such as the counters, the map, sequence of play, how things move, and so forth. We get into fire combat, modifiers, and resolution, what happens with broken units, how units rally. We have the leadership, how defensive fire works, the machine gun rule, which is actually kind of neat, fate, how fire movement works, or movement and fire as they call it, and we get into prepare for play. And that is it. Basically, we're looking at infantry units, we're looking at support weapon machine guns, leaders, basic terrain, and the basic sequence of play. So enough of this. Let's get this thing set up and let's see how the battle will result. Here we have the setup is complete, and this is familiar to anybody who has played this game. Very few decisions are required for the initial player, but some of them are very key. The easy ones are, for example, here in I-7. Basically, you have a bunch of men, machine guns, and a leader, and there's only 1 hex in that building, so that's decided. Same with the Russians up here. We have J2, M2, and November 2. This just leaves the rest of the buildings pretty much. Most of the rest of the buildings have some sort of decision. Let's go over here and talk about building F5. Noting that the enemy force is going to be within 2 hexes across the way from either H5 or F5, I, as the German, have decided to be further back. In here is a squad and a light machine gun to cover the road to the front. And here is the leader and the rest of the men to cover off to the flank. The idea being that This building's going to fall to the guards as they counterattack, but I don't want them to hit me too easily to start. The building in the middle, K5. Notice first of all the leader is by himself. Remember that if a leader gets shot at and breaks, everybody in his hex has to go a leader lost morale check. You don't want this to happen. So have him there by himself. Basically, we have a 4, 6, 7 in each with light machine guns covering the front of building F5. Again, trying to protect it with fire down the road. I7 is a setup as per. And over here, we have a medium machine gun with a couple of squads and a light machine gun with a squad. This guy can cover up to the front and keep these guys at bay, but also being here on the second level, simultaneously with the first, he can get some fire going over here as required. Finally, at the back, the HMG is out of position, although he can fire onto November 5, but later he's probably going to want to come into here to help get some fire across to the side or over here. The Russian, well, he has some other plans. First of all, or some unique situations for himself. Building F3 with a maximum stacking of 3 squads per hex, total of 4 hexes, 12 guys equals 3 per. I put the 10-2 in the back because, well, he's not going to be up front shooting at anybody. If he's shooting, he's not winning the game. Medium machine gun is already set, and so are the 2 buildings at the top as mentioned, M2 and N2. So that leaves the building down here. They get to fire first, and they're spreading out as best they can with 2 per hex. And again, his leader is behind him. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the sequence of play and see how to maximize things. Looking at the rules, we see the sequence of play. We got the rally phase, prep fire, movement, all the way down to the close combat phase. The key thing about this is to remember a few things. 1, you can only fire in one phase. So if you prep fire, you cannot move. And you cannot fire in the advancing fire phase. If you move, you can fire in the advancing fire phase, but at half firepower. If you don't move in the prep fire phase, and if you don't move in the movement phase, then you can fire at full power in the advancing fire phase. So there it is, but as we go through the first turn, we're going to see this play out. So let's make sure that we're all set and ready to play. Here we see the information counters that are going to be needed. A pile of prep fire counters that also back up with these little trigger marks or target marks, I call them. And I think the track markers, but there's a use for them. Also on the back of, what we'll learn later, the concealment counters, there are some that have the letters DM on it. That stands for Desperation Morale. As we play, you're going to see how that comes into play. Finally, we have 2 dice, complete with dice tower. We have the quick reference data card. We're just going to need the front for this one. There's one for your opponent. The dice, and of course the rules. So, let's get started. Okay, so here we are finding ourselves as the Russian. I've turned the counters around so they face me, so I have a better look at them, although some of them have gone out of parade square. And noting the victory conditions, I can either have more unbroken units than he for a ratio of 3 to 1, or I can take 2 more of those buildings that he initially has. So initially the first couple are going to be these 2. That's the chance. That's the way they're going to win. They're going to try to take these 2, prevent the Germans from taking any others, and hold them, and I've only got 5 turns to do so. So let's get the game started. As we start, nothing happens in the rally phase of the first turn, so now it's the prep fire phase, and I'm marking here who's firing at whom. Here we have the 9-1 leader with the 447 and the MMG firing across the road over here in a J4. I just put the target on there so you can see it better who he's shooting at. In the real game, you wouldn't do that. You just simply announce the attack and go. So here, I've got 4 plus 4 is 8. They're both in the normal range, so that's a firepower of 8. Stone building is a plus 3 DRM, but the leader makes it a -1. So it's a net plus 2. So it's an IFT 8 shot, DRM plus 2. Let's see what the roll is. And here we go. I rolled a 10. 10 plus 2 is 12. Go to the 8 column, come all the way down to 12. There's a dash that means no effect. Too bad for the Russians. Carrying on with the fire phase. Here we have 2 sets of units in Mike, what next is that? M5 and N5, Mike 5 and November 5. Remember that the units that are adjacent to each other and stacked within the same hex can form a fire group. As a reminder, there's 2 447s here and 2 447s there. They bring their fire together as a fire group, and they're targeting here at L6, 2 hexes away, in normal range. So 8 plus 8 is 16. Stone building, as you can see there, so it's a 16 DRM plus 3. Let's check out the roll. I rolled a 7. Let's check out the chart and see what happens. I roll a 7 plus 3 makes it 10. 10 on the 16 is a morale check. All right, perfect timing. Let's see what happens. Here's what was in the hex. 2 467s and the MMG. Only infantry units have to undergo morale checks, and there's no leader, so we don't have to check them first, so we simply roll a die. If we roll 7 or less, they're fine. If we roll more than that, they break. Let's see what the dice say. First one. I rolled a 5. He's good. Next. I rolled a 4. They're both good. They both passed their morale checks. Let's put them back on the board. Here the Russians have gone for one more attack. It's a bit of a cheeky attack, but here in Mike 2, they are 4 hexes away from the leader in K5. They've decided to try to target the leader. Remember, if the leader is broken or dead, then those units, if they break in that building, they cannot rally. Russian is obviously going for the long game here. We have 3 447s in normal range, so that is a total of 12 firepower factors. You can see stone building, so it's a 12 plus 3. What say the dice? 8. 8 plus 3 is 11. Let's check the chart. 12 column comes to an 11. No effect. The Russian fire has been withering, but has no effect this turn. The Russians have decided to go for one more attack. From G4, they're firing across the street into G6. 3 628s. 6 times 3 is 18. There is no 18 column, so we go down to 16. DRM is plus 3 for the stone building. What say the dice? The dice say 9. They say 6 plus 3 is 9. Come over to the 16 column, follow it down to 9. We see there it is a 1. Remember, the numeral 1 here means a plus 1 morale check. Let's now apply the results. Here's the units to be tested. Again, the light machine gun does not test, but the 467, it's a plus 1 morale check, so if he has to roll 6 or fewer on 2 dice in order to survive. Let's see what happens. In go the dice. Oh, rotten luck. He rolled a 7. 7 plus 1 is 8. Exceeds his morale, and the unit breaks. I will now apply the result. The unit has broken. It doesn't say so in the rules, but a good habit is to put a DM on a unit as soon as he breaks due to being shot at. This is a reminder for the German player that he will suffer desperation morale when he attempts to rally. The Russian now feels that he has done everything he has to do in order to carry on with the assault. So let's get to movement. The Russian starts here on the left in November 2. He decides to move the unit towards the fighting. So he moves forward into the stone building for 2 movement factors, keeps moving until he gets to the leader for a total of 4. And he has moved. What I've done here is I've twisted the unit that has moved sideways only as a mental note. And again, that's only a personal thing I do, but it's just more for a reminder. The 467 here, of course, he's in a building, multi-hex building of 3 or more, so he's at level 0 and 1 at the same time. When this fella here is going through here, he is also considered at level 0 and 1 at the same time. Therefore, he can see him. As a reminder, that's what that's for. The 467 is just reminding himself that this 447 has passed through there and he may wish to fire at him. But we will see what happens. Now let's see what the guards on the other side are going to do. The guards over here have decided to go with a full court press. They're going to try to take building F5 as soon as possible. They've broken a squad in here, although they can face some fire coming from the side. So what they're trying to do is going to try to spread out and get in there. Noting that this hex already has 3 units in it, they cannot go through there because that would overstack. So their avenues of approach are pretty limited. But they're going to see what they can do. So a unit from here decides to run across the street to F4 and finally into F5. He's over there, but again, he's seen in the middle of the street. And as a reminder, the German player places a track marker there. These 2 units aren't just going to sit here idly, but they're going to try to get over and maybe get some fire on these guys here. So these guys may try to get into a position to fire. In doing so, this unit decides to go for 2 over to here. This unit goes for 2 over to there, and they stop. The rest of these guys, what are they going to do? Well, as you can see, one guy went through here, and it's probably not a good thing to run everybody out in the street into the same hex. So they're going to have to try to find another way to get across. But they're blocked left and right, so some guys from here are going to have to go, and they're going to try it. Leader is staying put, but the first guy here is going to go to H3 for 2, H4 for 3, and he's stopping. And again, a reminder. Next guy, same thing. Turn them sideways. And finally, this guy here is just going to move into the wooden building, along with 2 guys from here and 2 guys from here. Leader's going to stay put, and the squad here is just going to go in with the leader as such. Everybody has moved. Now we're going to go to the German defensive fire phase. Remembering that the defensive fire phase, the Germans can fire at anybody in range, whether they moved or not. So the Germans are going to try some shots here. First, we're going to start off on the right. As noted, there is line of sight to November 6th. Just barely passes through. Actually, there is no line of sight here. This is an older board. So he's got nothing to shoot at. That's level 2. That's level 2. He's at level 1. He cannot see over something in between. Remembering from before that we have fire groups, these guys here are going to return the favor across the road. They're going to go for the corner hex. We have a total of 6 here, a total of 12. 12 plus 6 is 18. We can only go to 16, so let's keep the light machine gun out of it. 4, 4, 4, and 4 is 16 plus 3. Let's check the dice. The Germans are on fire. They rolled a 7. 7 on the 16 column is a 2. Plus 2 morale check on those guys. Let's check the results. The morale is 7 plus 2 to the dice. So if he rolls a 2, that'll be a net, or correction, if he rolls a 5, add 2, it'll be 7. They need to roll 5s. Let's see how lucky they feel. First one. He rolled a 5, but he also rolled a 2, so he breaks. Next one. He also rolled 7. They both break. For the next fire, we're going to see some magic with the machine guns. This unit here is going to fire down the street and hit both H4 and F4 when this guy passes through. Here's how it works. The squad will pick his target. In this case, he's going to fire at F4, or correction, H4. The machine gun will fire at H4 as well. But due to its penetrating fire along this spine, it can hit up to 2 hexes with its full firepower. So with one die roll, we're going to firepower of 6 minus 2 here, and 2 minus 2 when this guy passes through the road. I'll not see what happens. Remembering that it's one die, or correction, one dice roll. I've rolled a 7, pretty average. So let's check out the results. In the 6th column, the 7 minus 2 is a 5. That is a +1 morale check. On the 2 column, the 7 minus 2 is M. So it's a normal morale check. Let's now do the results. Here are the guys being tested. These guys have a +1 morale check, and he has a normal check. You can do it any order. Let's do the normal check and see what happens with him. In go the dice. Out comes a 7. He passes. I'll put him back in that hex. Of the next two guys, they have a +1 check. First guy, 4 + 1 is a 5. Less than 8, he's good. Next guy, he rolled a 4. 4 + 1 is a 5. Let's go put them back. And here we go. We've placed them both back. They both miraculously survived running out into the streets. This next fella, however, so nobody else can shoot at him there, so he moves on. Point blank. Now you know they're going to fire at him here. Let's see what happens. Here's Sergeant Kelso and his band of brothers. They have 2 4.67s and a light machine gun for a total of 10 firepower factors. Now you notice that the enemy is 1 hex away. It's adjacent. That means that the firepower is doubled. So it's actually a 20. DRM +3 for the building, -1 for the leader. So it's a 20 +2 to the dice roll. Let's see if their luck changes. Apparently rolling low is cool. I rolled a 4. 4 comes to a 6. 6, come all across here to a 3 in the 20 column. So that is a 3 morale check on those guys. Let's see if they can pass. Oh, it's not a good day to be a German. They pass. Let's see what happens once we apply the results. Next up, we have the 4.67 and light machine gun here in building hex J5, firing out to the streets into H4. Firepower 6, DRM of -2, and the penetration will be a 2 +3 into G4. Let's roll the dice and see what happens. Go to the dice. Oh, it's a bad day for the Germans, or sorry, for the Russians. You rolled a 4. 4 in the 6th column is not bad, but when you take away 2 for moving it open, you have KIA. Also, you roll a 4 in the 2 column +3 comes to nothing with penetration. Let's apply the results. Well, Russians aren't there anymore. I just took them off the board. That's usually what I like to do, is to show that they're no longer there. The final attack here is I7. He's going to fire all the way up to J2, trying to take that machine gun out. And if you follow the path, you can see that the line of sight passes through right about halfway here and comes up into that. Take a string, you'll see that I'm true. Let's see what's going to be firing. Well, here's everyone. 3 times 4 6 7s is 12, plus another 6. Well, you see we're getting to 18. Only 16 columns, so leave a machine gun out. And with the -2 leader to actually help direct the fire. Remember, it's a stone building. So it's going to 16 firing on +3, -2 for the leader for a net 16 +1. Let's roll the dice. See what happens. I rolled a 6. Let's see where we go. 6 over on the 16 column is a +2 morale check. Let's see if they survive. +2 morale check. The medium machine gun doesn't have to be checked. We start with the leader and work our way across. Let's see what happens. First die. I roll a 7. 7 +2 is 9. The leader passes. Interesting. It's a +2 morale check, -1 leader, so it ends up being a +1 morale check on the 4-4-7. And let's say the dice. Bad news. They break. Let's apply the results. The defensive fire phase is done. Now it is time for the advancing fire phase. Let's go see if the Russians can do any better in their advancing fire. Let's start on the right. The 628 here is moved, and he's adjacent to some guys. He's going to fire at them point blank. Firepower is 6. half to 3 for moving, and then double to 6 for being point blank. DRM is +3. Roll them bones. 10 plus 3. We don't even have to look. 13. We know we missed. Next shot is going to be here from these 628s in H3 firing across the road. There's 3 of them. Total of 18. Halved for moving for a total of 8. 8 plus 3 for the stone building. They're back on the wrong side. 8 plus 3 is 11. On the 8 column, that missed by quite a bit. The Russians have decided to end their advancing fire phase. It is now time to rout. The Russians have to rout first. Starting here, the broken unit is going to choose a route to somewhere that has to be a building or woods, in this case building, and it's right next to them. It's not getting closer to anybody who's going to go. The leader can choose to join him, and he chooses to do so. So he goes across to here, leaving the machine gun behind, and the leader's going to go with him to try to fix him up. Up here, these fellows who are DM, they are going to try to break, and they're going to go back to where the leader was, where he was put into November 4. It's almost like they figured they were going to break. Chances are they will. Notice they are not overstacked. There are 3 squads and a leader in that hex. I leave the DM on top to remind myself. Over here, the Russians have put that German in a pickle. Let's have a look at it from the German side to see what his options are. The squad here has to route because he is adjacent to this guy here. He has to route into cover, a building or woods. H5 seems good until you realize that by moving there, he's getting closer to the known enemy unit here in H3. So that's out of it. Thankfully, I can pause. So now he's looking back for somewhere else to go. It has to be the nearest cover, and H7 is it. So he's going to route through the open ground. Nobody can shoot at him there, and he's going to end up in H7. Oh, he broke, by the way. Leaving the light machine gun behind, taking the DM counter, and there. The rout phase is done. Let's go to the Russian side and do the advance phase. Remembering that in the advance phase, units can go, any unit who is not broken can move 1 hex. The Russians will take full advantage of this. Let's start on the left. We got this good order unit here. He's going to fill the hole left behind those broken guys. These guys in the woods, they're going to stay there so they can keep shooting. He's not moving. These guys, you know they are. The advance phase is the only time that you can enter a hex that has an enemy in it. That's what he's doing there now. The others are taking advantage, and they're going to run off and cross the strait and flood. Oops, get over there. Flood the streets with Russians. Now this may not be the best move. We've lined himself up in the street, down a 9, down 2, down the street. But that's okay. Sometimes people roll 12s, but now he's got a lot of targets to shoot at. But we have a lot more to do before that, because next is the close combat phase. And that is what this is going to be all about right here. In close combat, it's a straight up fight. In this case, we have Germans and the Russians. Russians will attack first, and they declare their attack being 6-4, being 3-2 against just this guy. Back here, they only have 1 target, so they have to combine their attack. The light machine gun gets to add the attack, so a total of 8 plus 2 is 10-6. So that is a 3-2 attack as well, but DRM -1 for the leader applying his modifier. All right, let's see what the Russian does. He rolled his dice and he rolled a 5. So it was a 3-2. His number is 6. He rolled less than that, so it does kill the 1 squad. That's okay, because the attack is simultaneous, and it's still a 3-2 -1 on the 6-2-8. They roll their dice. Oh no, a 9. A 9 minus 1 for the leader is 8. For a 3-1 it would work, but it don't. So these guys are now locked in melee. Let's place them back on the board. Okay, so this is the situation at the end of the Russian first turn. Quite a bit has happened here. We've seen some Russians get mowed down in the street here. We've seen some Russians get shot apart here by some withering machine gun fire. And more importantly, it looks like they're ready to bust out and take this building here. Remember, this guy cannot shoot outside his own hex. In fact, he's locked in combat. Neither of them can. So a lot of these guys are free. We still got some machine guns. They're going to try to shoot across here and cut these guys to ribbons and seam across the top. The Russians are hoping that being in the open with no DRMs is going to be a survivor for them with a leader here, ready to swing the door and possibly jump into 2 buildings. Meanwhile, enough pressure on this side to keep these guys occupied from going across. So that's it for this one. The Guards Counterattack, turn 1 for the Russians. I hope you enjoyed this walkthrough, and I hope that it illustrated some of the nuances of the rules, and also how sometimes, or actually to show the difference between prep fire, advancing fire, and so forth. All right, I hope you enjoyed the video, and look forward to next time. I'm going to go through turn 1 of the Tractor Works. Take care.